Call of Duty Modern Warfare. We are on Xbox One X, which is pushing a 4K resolution at 60 FPS with HDR support, and it looks absolutely incredible on the platform. So we're starting with a little bit of the campaign here. I picked a spot that I felt was appropriate in terms of the graphic content and also the narrative in regards to not spoiling anything, because this is a really great campaign. It's visceral, it's intense, it's unsettling, it's uncomfortable, and honestly I feel a little bit traumatized after rolling through it all at once. It's really gripping, well done, great pacing. It feels like an action story that you just continue to work through, and you really won't ever be able to expect what's going to happen. It's very interesting. So you're playing multiple perspectives and characters like you always have been in Call of Duty, except things are a little bit more different now. The narrative is really focused around this one particular individual that's a freedom fighter, and that becomes more and more apparent as you progress along and you basically get an idea of what's going on. There's chemical weapons that are missing. There's a deep history. You get to see some flashbacks that dig into that, and those flashbacks are so incredibly dark and just really scarring, as is a lot of the experience in this one, which is great because, you know, it actually feels sort of more like a real theater of war in regards to being you know, something that's graphic and intense, and you die a lot easier in this one. Seriously, it is pretty hardcore to actually survive in this one, because you do not take as much damage as you traditionally do in Call of Duty titles, at least in my opinion. But that's also great because it helps kind of hammer in the sense of death and destruction, everything like that. Oh wow, yeah, the thing is deadly. But yeah, aside from just the narrative being well done and you getting to see these different perspectives from the characters that help round things out, I thought it was generally a really strong story. Some of the decisions later on were a bit like, I don't know, but for the most part, this is definitely one of the more memorable campaigns in the Call of Duty franchise. You know, it's great how it depicts war in an actual, seemingly realistic way. I don't think there are many other games that do that. And in general, this really does feel like a sort of genre-defining shooter, almost. I could make the comparison to Call of Duty 4, just in regards to how, you know, innovative, how different that particular title was in regards to like how it affected the industry, how it changed the pacing for titles, shooters, and everything like that. And this one kind of feels like that kind of evolution based on, you know, the visuals, the attitude it brings, the maturity. Whoa. You know, the fact that it feels so polished, so intense. Great action, though. I also like that it's more of an intimate tale. And I say that in the sense that while it is, you know, a global sort of affair, it isn't really over the top or too crazy. It definitely feels like it's in the realms of being a possible thing in today's modern age, which is even creepier just in regards to like the terrorism, you know, just the factions, and like this is, you know, kind of like a real world situation that's actually happening to a degree. I mean, it's obviously been fictionalized to, you know, an option, and trying to keep it more, you know, not too real, like based on real events, but you get the idea of what I'm aiming for in regards to talking about this. Yeah, I got that guy down. And I don't know, it's just, it feels really intense. It doesn't feel like it's an over-the-top set piece, which I think is really important in this one. You know, some of the later Call of Duties, while they were great in the Modern Warfare series, some of them did get a bit, I guess I would say, over the top. I did enjoy them, but they didn't quite feel as grounded as this one really does. And you actually feel like you're truly in these environments, these war-torn, you know, situations. And when you're meeting these like civilians, there's a lot of civilian interactions. Some of it actually made me feel really sick, especially the sort of opening. There's like a London situation, and that whole scene was just really quite traumatizing and uncomfortable. That's a lot like the campaign. It was very uncomfortable. What the heck? I think I got like shot down from an MG or anything. That aside, we are going to move on to the multiplayer element of play. Alright, so now we're into the multiplayer. I first want to stop and talk about the special ops mode. So things are a little bit different now. It's a type of mode that continues the events of the single player experience, but it is cooperative in nature, and you have a matchmaking situation where you work with others, which doesn't necessarily always work well if you're finding people online to play with. That aside, it is a very interesting mode. You get very large maps, very interesting dynamic missions to work through, and I think it actually is quite well done. It's just hard to get people to function well in that mode. But it is a neat extra in the game. It's just a little bit different if you're expecting something that is more traditional. Now, they do have some traditional type options with that mode, but you know, for the most part, the core of it is a revamped experience, which I thought was of value. Just again, very hard to find other people that are competent to play it with, which is why I didn't really want to show it off gameplay wise. So now we'll focus on the multiplayer. So this feels fantastic. It's boots on the ground, more classic style Call of Duty action. We've got and at the same time, it's a completely different type of experience. Okay, so we have the series of regular and some returning modes. You know, you got your death matches, you got your domination, there's headquarters, which is back, which was always a favorite of mine. And now we have larger than ever theaters of war. We can have large scale maps and battles. And you see that with Groundwar, or even expanded upon deathmatch. You know, we're getting these bigger games on these larger maps, and it feels fantastic. It seems like they're experimenting and actually delivering something that is fresh and different for the series while still being on brand in regards to what the history of the series has provided. The multiplayer also feels nice and balanced. There's lots of just natural leveling, you know, and there's just a lot of content to it as you level up, and then you select perks, you do your custom classes, and it just feels a lot more grounded and realistic action-wise for the multiplayer, which is awesome. You know, it feels like such a revitalized effort. And in general, this game feels, in my opinion, as bold as COD 4 did. Not only, like I mentioned, in terms of like the single player, but also the multiplayer action really does feel refined and refreshed. And it does seem like they're willing to play around with weird things, like they have, not at the moment, but you know, from the beta, they have night based modes, night maps, and again, Ground War, which we'll show off a little bit later, because I want this to be a sort of split multiplayer showcase of what this has to provide. Oh, yeah, we got shot there, great. So there's a lot of modes. There's also realism mode for those that want something more intense. Lots of options in regards to customizing, again, not only your classes, but your weapons too, your guns. You can put all kinds of things on them, decorate them, and unlock stuff. I think you can actually pick it up there. And it just seems like, you know, it's a good version of Call of Duty. It feels traditional. It feels like the type of Call of Duty that I really did enjoy back in the day, that I've slowly been fading out of. I did enjoy World War II quite a bit, and I thought Black Ops 4 was serviceable, but they didn't quite hold me as much as I feel this one is going to moving forward. Another thing that I really like is the fact that these maps don't feel like maps. I say that in the sense that they make older Call of Duty maps feel almost cartoonish in nature. These feel like actual segments of real locations. We still have a fairly good balancing in regards to the flow, but they feel larger and they have like a greater sense of scale and realism to them. You know, we've always gotten large scale backdrops, but for these ones you feel like you're actually in a place that's real. and you don't feel like you're on like a set level that's, you know, very cookie cuttered out of, you know, a set area and everything like that. They feel like actual battlegrounds, which is not something we've really seen in this series, you know. Traditionally, that's a really hard claymore to blow up. I should use my flash or my stun grenade. My bad there. But it's something we've really only seen, I guess, I would say, in like a Battlefield game. And it's weird that Call of Duty's been able to take their concept of gameplay and expand it out like that, and it feels so natural, so good, and it feels more epic in scale, at least in my opinion. And then, aside from just being better that way, the fact that this is a full cross-play experience where you can play with players on any platform, you can play with your friends anywhere, feels like, to me, a big step up towards next generation gaming, which I think is going to continue in that direction, and that's really exciting. And the fact that they were able to pull that off so well is just absolutely fantastic. Like, you can play this on, you know, Xbox One X, you can put in a mouse and keyboard and play that way, or you can use a controller input, and it match makes you, and it, you know, it creates a fair sense of competition as you're playing, you know, even despite your inputs, because it'll match you up with your inputs. And I think that's just a really well done way to handle, you know, this cross-play experience. And it's fantastic that we're seeing this as an option. I was actually also playing this on PC with my new rig. I was using ray tracing, which is great, but the fact that I can, you know, play with other people no matter where I am, I think is a big, bold step forward for the industry, and the fact that Call of Duty is at the charge with this year's iteration is a big deal in my opinion, and I think it adds extra value to what this is. Even moving past that, they've ditched, you know, the season pass type thing. So we're going to see free content being added. We will have to wait and see how that affects gameplay. But the fact that, you know, they're making steps towards not segmenting the population, because you would sometimes feel out of it in regards to being able to play if you didn't have the content, as like your friends might have the DLC and you don't, and then you can't play the new maps, and they want to play the new maps, and I'm sure everybody's been there at one point or another in Call of Duty if you've played the games. So yeah, it feels great. It's a lot of fun to play. I have a good time working through these maps. There's a lot of multiplayer maps that are present. There's a lot of, you know, skills and weapons and tools to play with, and it all feels really more traditional and action-packed. It's the most fun I've had in the multiplayer, honestly, in a very long time. I did thoroughly enjoy World War II, don't get me wrong. Played quite a fair bit of that, but this one just really takes me back to those old days where I would just spend countless hours playing like COD 4, Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, which I had 10th prestiges in the first two, and I think the third one I had maybe more. I'm not too sure, because I think there's like 20 prestiges or something, and that is ridiculous. I know I didn't max out, but I'm just trying to give context in regards to why this particular title really does hit a soft spot for me, just in terms of nostalgia, but also pushing that forward with new visuals and new effects, and just they're really pushing the concepts of the game. So we're going to switch over to Groundwar at this point to show off what that mode can provide. Okay, so we're in Groundwar now, and I wanted this to be a specific highlighted part of the video review, because this really is a completely fresh take and just experience for Call of Duty. It's larger environments than we really have ever seen before, greater player numbers than we've ever seen before, and to me that's a big deal, because this is something that will attract an entirely new type of player. Now, I know we did have Battle Royale, which did, you know, have very large maps, you know, a very large environment and lots of players to shoot in. I'm saying specifically on the competitive side of COD, where, you know, we have the traditional competitive multiplayer, that we haven't seen anything like this before. And to me that's quite a big deal, because it shows a potential shift for what this franchise presents. You know, we get that old school, smaller, intense, fast-paced action, but now we also have the option to experience something that is a bit grander in scale, a bit more intense, with more players, more like a real battlefield, it has to say. And there are vehicles, which is something I don't think we've seen since World at War, basically. Well, World War II, I believe, had like some tank things, but it wasn't really quite like this. The vehicle play in this really does remind me of Call of Duty 3, actually, in regards to the different types that are available. Yeah, you know what, I guess Black Ops 4's Battle Royale did have like Jeeps and stuff, but I don't know if that really counts. Oh crap, that wasn't good. Yeah, but you get to kind of spawn, it's a large-scale battle, you're fighting for positions. It definitely feels like an interesting evolution, or at least growth, for what the franchise does provide in terms of content. I think it's a lot of fun. It's nice to mix it up between playing this and playing something like Domination or Headquarters. You know, it's just something that is a little bit unique and exciting, and something that's different that I think is worthwhile to check out. But overall, in Modern Warfare, they've done a great job of really revitalizing at least my passion and excitement and hype for this franchise. I think this plays very well. It feels polished. The game looks fantastic visually. It's a massive step up, in my opinion, over previous Call of Duty titles in terms of being super gritty. I didn't even imagine that the series could really quite look this great. I mean, the visuals on the 1X are just absolutely stellar here. I mean, there are little tiny things you see like occasionally would like pop in the far distance. It's so barely noticeable. It feels very clean, it feels very fluid, and you know, it's a very well done game, very well done package. I think it offers a lot of content. I mean, we don't necessarily have like an extra mode like zombies or something like that, but I feel by sort of going back and focusing a bit more that they've actually created a better cohesive experience that doesn't feel too bloated or anything like that. You've got a gripping, great narrative that's just shocking and disturbing, and I found it so unsettling and kind of really traumatic, which I've mentioned these things, but they're the sort of things that leave an impression, and it makes it feel like this isn't just like a over-the-top theatrical movie where it's an action thriller. This feels grounded. It feels like there is a weight to what is going on, what is being told here. And I think that's really quite special, and it's something that I haven't really had this. Like, usually there's shock value, which is what it's called in previous Call of Duty titles. You know, we've seen little bits of it before, but never have they layered it on or tried to make it feel as intense as they do in this one. So the flashbacks particularly, again, were just kind of traumatic. I saw that guy, I was aiming in to go shoot him. Total bad on my spot, or my part there. But again, I don't want to talk about those situations because that's going to spoil something. And you really should go into it sort of fresh and just experience it for yourself. It really is worthwhile if you can sit there and play through all of it. At least I think so. But you know, you work within your times and stuff like that. There's a good selection of levels. It's got a good length to it. The multiplayer feels like there's a lot of content as well. Lots of maps, different ways to play. Whether you want more traditional, smaller battles, or if you want expanded ones, or if you want to go really big with Groundwar, it's definitely worth checking out. And I think they've done a really good job in providing something that is visually appealing, exciting to play, fun to play, and it takes me back, which is, you know, fantastic in regards to making me feel like I'm excited to play a Call of Duty title again. So yeah, I think they've really made the right moves with this one, and I, you know, definitely do highly recommend and suggest this this title. It's something that, you know, feelings-wise, we haven't been given in a long time. And it's just kind of really exciting to get this larger sense of warfare going on. This grittier battle. The vehicles, you know, just the sense of expansion upon the series. And them trying new things is really great. Because that's one of the big complaints that, you know, Call of Duty always gets, is the fact that it does feel, you know, a little stale. And that's a fair thing to say because the game largely is the same sort of experience year on year. And the fact that it does have yearly releases also adds a certain element of fatigue. So they went bold, they tried new things, and I love the direction they took. And I hope to see this, being something that is, wow, that was intense, applicable in future titles in the franchise. Just some of the ideas, the different types of combat that's present. I mean, they could, hopefully, they do expand this further with new modes and stuff as, I need to get away from that side of the map, as they release, additional content in the future. We'll have to see how that works out, but they've done a lot of good things. New mechanics which are cool, like the door bashing, which is nice, the sort of specialty things you have. The crossplay is a massive deal in my opinion. This feels like the start of the next generation, quite honestly. Came a little bit soon, and that really does help make this stand out as a genre-defining shooter. This is a big deal for pushing, the industry forward, hopefully, and other titles will once again look at this as an example of something that they should maybe not necessarily emulate, but push towards, competing with this as a sort of new standard for the genre. So it's really great. Check out all the modes if you can, and play with your friends anywhere, because cross-platform play is fantastic, and it is absolutely gorgeous and stunning on Xbox One X. Seriously, these visuals are just absolutely top-notch on this console. They do not disappoint visually at all.